My guest on this episode of Suds and Search is Mat Sitala, founder of Avalaunch Media, co-founder of the Business of Digital podcast, and the man behind one of the most famous beards in all of digital marketing. Digital.com recently named Avalaunch Agency of the Year for 2020. Avalaunch was chosen after Digital.com interviewed and screened 280 other agencies. Mat co-hosts the extremely impressive podcast, The Business of Digital, with Dave Rohrer. After you're done watching this episode, I highly encourage tuning into Mat's podcast. The information is really good, and Mat and Dave have great chemistry. Mat is an in-demand conference speaker, presenter, and podcaster. A short list of the conferences you may have seen him present at includes Brighton SEO, Pubcon, SearchFest, and State of Search. If you've never seen Mat present, check out his SlideShare account. He's got some of the best-looking slides I've ever seen. Mat is a serial entrepreneur. In addition to owning his agency, Mat has owned several small businesses, including a mattress retailer. We'll talk a little bit about his entrepreneurial journey during our conversation. Join me for a fun conversation with Mat Sitala. We'll talk about how to leverage your content for max capacity, how to avoid common client relations traps, and the Twitter account at Siltala's Beard. Mat Sitala, welcome to Suds and Search. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me. Doing great today. It's good to be with you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. I wanted to start out by congratulating you and your agency. I saw on your blog that Avalaunch has been named the Agency of the Year by Digital.com. You can go to your blog and figure out how they came up with that criteria, but you were selected from over 280 agencies. What does the honor mean to you?
You know, we've put a lot of work into it over the years, and you know, for me, it's just I don't know. I think back to, you know, when we first started off as Dream Systems Media. Well, let's go back a little bit further. I started off just basically just a solo dude, and I got to the point where I had gotten so much business and so much clients, you know, and it all came from I was working this corporate job and doing some of this internet marketing stuff on the side. And ended up working with a guy that I did some good work for in the credit card space. And he ended up referring me a couple people, and one of the people that he ended up referring ended up being just this client that has made us millions over the years, and he's ended up referring tons. And it kind of just, going back to that moment, I got to the point where, all right, this is too much for me as a one-man shop. And so I had, my business partners that we were doing other stuff with. They were doing things, and we just kind of decided to throw it all in together, and just combine it as one company, and not doing little side projects anymore. And that's when Dream Systems Media formed, and then we got to the point where we started landing some pretty big clients, and there was a little bit of confusion with the name, and I haven't really shared a lot of this, I don't think, but we were starting to get confused with like a home theater system install company or something like that. And anyway, it was but it was hard for me at the time to make the change, because it was my baby. I grew it from the ground up, but we had a group of people, and we went through a ton of just rebranding ideas and logos, and ultimately ended up settling on Avalaunch Media. And I can't remember the exact amount, but I think we're like close to 60 employees now, and
wow.
And it's crazy to think about just how it started with me just deciding to just screw around and see what I could do to get people ranking.
Wow, yeah, 60 employees is a big agency, coming from a one-man shop especially. So, well, listen, I looked at a number of your most recent presentations on your SlideShare and elsewhere. First of all, your slides
recent as in pre-COVID.
Yes, right.
I haven't done anything since.
I was gonna say I did say exact time, but your most recent ones. But one of the things, your slides look better than just about anybody I noticed. Do you have a design background? You must spend a lot of time on these things.
I do have a design background, but I can't take credit for any of the recent ones. Luckily, we have an amazing team behind us, and sometimes I get a little crazy, if it's just me designing mine, and we have a design team that tries to rein us in and tell us to keep things on point with our brand, and so they've taken over those duties, and luckily I can just kind of put the content together, in an outline and tell them where my vision is, and they, our team develops that. So I'm kind of fortunate with that side of it. But I do have a lot of input as far as the direction that I want it to go. But our designers and our team, they're amazing.
Hey, dude, kudos to those guys.
Thank you.
So in one of those, it was at Brighton. You had this case study that I wanted to ask you about. The company is called Blendtec.
Oh yeah.
And I just love this story because Blendtec approaches you. They need to sell 800 of the world's most advanced blender, and they give you a little bit of time, 4 days, to sell 800 blenders. Can you tell me what strategy you used and whether or not this was successful?
Well, that was a pretty amazing deal. I mean, you got the information on the case study there. I wasn't involved in that one. That was our team that ran that. But anytime that we have an opportunity to work with a brand like Blendtec, like that was fun. I mean, I already been watching them from the days of Will It Blend.
Sure.
And it's that stuff that they do there just amazes me, and the fact that we got to work with them and selling. It was the Little Blender campaign that we did. And, this was when we started working on that when, I'm trying to remember the names of like those little, like Tasty or Delish, those recipe type videos that people were first starting to throw out, and just the different ways that they were coming from the top down. And it was just a credit to our team and what they did to pull that off. Like that was pretty neat.
So the big thing is the 4 days. How could you get a campaign off the ground and be you in the presentation? You say not only did you meet the goal of selling 800 units, you exceeded it. Just kind of talk to me a little bit about that time frame. 4 days seems like impossible, a mission impossible to me. Yeah,
I mean it was pretty cool. All I gotta say is just kudos to the team. I just that's just the kind of normal stuff that we do at Avalaunch Media. But I was pretty blown away with what they were able to accomplish as well.
Oh, very cool. And in that same presentation, you talk about something that I've experienced a lot in my career. I think just about every marketer has, where you'll have a client and they'll say, we need to do an influencer marketing campaign, or we need an infographic, or we need content. And because you want to treat your clients like gold, and this is a customer service business, and you want to be good, you kind of entertain this you get an icky feeling because you don't think it's fully fleshed out. How do marketers avoid falling into that trap?
That's a great question, because it's like when I remember when we first got into this, like I would take almost any project. I'm going back to the late 90s, early 2000s. Like I almost never said no, and then I have learned to say no, and I have learned to help people understand, like you can do this, absolutely, you can spend the money on this, but here's some alternatives, and here's why I think that you should go this route versus this. And it's just all about knowing your audience. And the thing is, sometimes it's interesting how it works out. Like I have some really good friends that opened up a restaurant February of 2020, so like right before everything was shut down. And so we had to get real creative with them, and they leaned on me for a lot of hey, where should we put our money, and where should this time and effort go. And it's interesting looking back, because one of the things that I was that I would never recommend normally to those type of businesses is like those direct mailers, or like those value packs or things like that. Like typically we could get a lot more revenue done or sales driven with other means, but in this case they got an opportunity, they tried it. And so it's like it's one of those things where and this is another part of it that there's just so many things going through my head right now. But one of the things with this one was that I never thought would have flied was TikTok videos. Like they got a TikTok account, and like so they're a restaurant, and it's a very specialized product. It's not like a big known name or anything, and they're way out in the middle of nowhere. And they just started throwing some TikTok videos together about how they do. They have a certain type of scone. It's like a fluffy, it's the golden scone is what it is, but they just kind of showed their method of how they went about doing what they do. And it ended up like going crazy and getting them tens of thousands of views. And it ended up bringing influencers to their restaurant because they saw them on that. And then they, of course, did their own videos. And so it's like sometimes some of the traditional stuff that you think is going to work or not going to work, there is no rhyme or reason. It takes me back to when we first started creating infographics, back in the day. This is going to date me, but back in the days of like Dig and Stumble Upon, when you create something and just hope, when it used to be the bragging rights of getting so much traffic, you took the server down. But, those days I would put out something like we did this Charlie Sheen graphic back when he went crazy. I don't know if you remember that time.
Oh, sure.
But
Tiger Blood.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thought that this graphic was like the greatest thing we ever did, and I thought it was going to get millions and millions of links and views, and I think it got maybe like 10,000 or something. But then at the same time, we put out this history of police cars, and that thing like got hundreds of thousands, almost 1 million views, like within the first week. And I was like, there's no rhyme or reason for this. Like I didn't understand it. And so, I mean, obviously as time's gone on, you can understand that better with better analytics and better tracking and things like that. But this was just back in the day, sometimes trying to throw things out there. Sometimes that's just what you got to do. You got to throw it out there and see what sticks.
I've had that same experience so many times where you think that something's going to be huge and then it flops, and something you think is going to be mediocre tends to be, this huge, piece of content for traffic. So
yeah.
I totally get it. You mentioned infographics, so I think I'll go here. In that same presentation, you talk about a visual snack pack and moving beyond just doing infographics. What is a visual snack pack, and how can you use that concept to go beyond the infographic?
Well, with us, it's you pay a lot of times if you're going to have an infographic, whether it be interactive or just a regular static one or whatever. A lot of times, when they're done right, you spend a lot of money on them. Okay, the client, it's a lot of time that's spent researching. It's a lot of time making sure the graphic is right, back and forth. Depending on who you're doing it for, legal teams look at it, HR teams look at it. Anyway, it can be a lengthy and expensive process, and so what we like to do is we like to help people understand how to maximize that. And so it's like, instead of like back in the day, we would create one and would put it out there and hope that it got picked up on Dig or Stumble Upon and got a bunch of links and, help the overall SEO and stuff like that. But as we evolved and as we started figuring out different platforms, what we would do is we would create this graphic, but then would also create sections of it that would work specifically with the right sizes with Twitter, or work specifically with Pinterest, little snippets or little micrographics, something that would look better or work well on Instagram, or that you could chop up into 4 or 5 pictures that people could swipe through easier. And so it gives you this ability to, you have this one piece of content that you created, but you could use it on multiple platforms. And then you can also take sections of that and then write blog posts about certain snippets that are in that graphic, whether it be data points or whatnot. And so it comes back to, we ended up repurposing a lot of graphics that would do really well and using them. And so it just was that kind of evolving into, well, let's create this as an offering and create more value for the customer. Let's just give them all of this and, and help them and teach them how to better utilize this content and use it across multiple platforms.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just thinking here. So far in this conversation, we've talked about TikTok. We've talked about infographics, which are involved in design, link building, which is an SEO tactic. Do you think that your beginning, where you said I would do anything, to get a client early on, gave you kind of the Swiss Army knife of knowledge, where you can take a piece of content and do anything that might help that client?
It's definitely helped. I mean, it's funny because, I used to do, again, way back in the day, I used to do this series called, Will It Viral? Or I can't remember exactly what I called it, but something about like, can I take the most, give me the most boring industry that you can think of, and I'll come up with an idea for you. Like,
I like that.
I think one of them was like paper shredding, and then we ended up doing a bunch of research and figuring out. And again, don't quote me on any of this because I can't remember all the specifics. So this was like 15 something years ago, but something to the effect of there's so much paper shredded in a day that if you put it on top of each other, it would be like as high as the Empire State Building or something like that. I can't remember, but we basically would come up with ideas like that. Like, give me a boring industry and I'll give you something that people would actually be interested in consuming or sharing or finding something interesting. And so that's kind of like, that's how we approach it all. Just like, again, obviously, there certain industries, it's just never going to work. Like, it's really hard to, with legal stuff or divorce or,
Sure.
I mean, a lot of times there's just, doctor related stuff. It's really hard to think of something that you can do that, there are just certain areas where it's just like off limits. I don't know how to put it, but for the most part, we've been able to come up with ideas in almost any industry, boring or not, just based on stuff like that. So
I love that idea. I'd love to try some industries on you, but maybe another time when we meet in person. I've had some really boring ones. Before I want to make sure I mention your podcast. So the Business of Digital podcast is really excellent, Matt.
Thank you.
I would recommend. I listened to one about a 101 guide to writing blog posts. You and your co-host have this really great chemistry too, by the way. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, Dave and I, we've been friends for a long time.
Tell our audience just a little bit about the podcast and where they can find it.
Well, it's at business. If you just do a Google search for Business of Digital Podcast, you'll find it. But we're pretty much everywhere. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, any of the big ones that anyone uses. We're on it. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because one of the things that Dave and I wanted to do, I actually showed more. I forgot. I had a shirt that it says, it's a Business of Digital Podcast. It's all talking is, better than writing. And the reason that we started getting into the whole podcasting is because Dave and I hate blogging. We hate writing. We hate anything related to that. But we love talking with each other. And so, it took both of us pushing each other to finally do it. And we love having that conversation style podcast. And we wanted to we didn't want to put any fluff in it. We didn't want to have like 15, 20-minute intros. We just wanted to kind of get into it, chat about stuff that's important to people, mom and pops type, people that could really learn from it. You're listening to it on a commute, 15, 20 minutes or a 15, 20-minute jog, and that's what we really were trying to do with it.
Well, yeah, and I completely agree with you. One of the reasons I have a video series /podcast is because I hate writing blog posts, too. I've got one I have to get done before the end of the quarter, and it's like I'm going to get that done the night before, I think. So,
well, hats off to you guys for doing this with the video, too, because that's another Dave and I are lazy. Like, we always toss around the idea, should we be doing video with this as well? But we're like, that just adds one more element of editing. And we're super lazy with stuff like that. So
I dig it. Well, I have some questions not super work related, but maybe indirectly work related.
Awesome,
do you own a mattress store, a mattress retailer?
Used to. We sold a year or so ago. But yeah, I actually had owned a mattress company called Rocky Mountain Mattress since 2003. And only the last couple of years we got rid of that, or it was acquired, and then we got rid of the company that acquired us, and that's a couple years now. But yeah, it was. The reason we got into it is because we're always like, well, if I'm going to be recommending certain things, people doing certain things, like I got to be in the trenches. I got to be knowing this stuff as well, and that's really, and like when you say why mattresses, well, we had a contact and we're like, holy crap, do you realize like how much of a markup you can make on mattresses? There was like no passion or love or joy or anything about it. Like they say, pick your passion. It was strictly because we're like, holy crap, we can make a lot of money selling mattresses. Let's do it.
The margins are good. That was what I was going to ask. So the digital marketing came before the mattress. It wasn't like you were a mattress. You weren't a mattress store that just stumbled into digital marketing.
It was kind of like both. The reason I say kind of both is because I was doing, marketing on the side for people and just the stuff that I had learned. Well, even going way further back when I officially got into I actually worked at a radio station. I was a co-host on a morning country show, if you can believe that. But I was still going to college at the time, and they didn't have digital marketing degrees. They didn't have anything like that. Like, I was going for computer information systems or something, I think. But back then in the late 90s, if you're doing anything computer related, they threw you into all categories of, you're getting your degree in computers. That means you can design a website. So I was like, okay, sure, let's try it. And so the radio station hired me to do their first 3 websites, and I did that. But I learned in the process of doing that, just with doing little things to the titles, doing little things with link building, adding links here or there, how easy it was to rank. Again, this was late 90s. Like, I could just change a title tag and rank number 1 for nothing. But that kind of drove the passion. But see, that's where it's kind of hard to answer this, because then in 2003, when we started this mattress company, like, I'd already started to be into it and started to build the clients, but nothing really became official until, quite a few years later.
That's awesome. And then the other thing I was going to ask you about is you're a must follow on Twitter, and not just your personal account. There is a Mat Sitala's beard account that I think everyone should follow. Tell us about this. Is sort of a parody account, but it's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about it.
I can't remember, Greg. Were you in the minivan that day when we were in Seattle? I think you were. But when it all came about, I just started growing my beard one day, and I didn't mean for it to turn into what it turned into. But it was funny because we were just at a SMX show, and we were getting dinner, and there was a group of us that was in a minivan, and I remember Will Scott said something to the effect of, well, I can't see it past his beard, or something like that. And so then Matt McGee, who old school industry dude, was there and in the van as well, and he got the bright idea of, well, I need to start a Twitter account for this beard. Anyway, that's how it was born, and a lot of people don't realize it, but he's the one that mans the account and is behind it, and it's been funny. It's definitely taken a life of its own, and but that's really the background to it.
No, let's keep it going. I love it. Well, this is everyone's favorite part of the show. This is where Greg gives me some questions for the guest, and he gives me no context, so I don't necessarily know what these questions are about, and neither do you. It's a little bit of a high wire act. The first thing for you, he gave me 3. So this is a record. Usually it's like 1 or maybe 2, but you have 3 of them. So the first thing he said to ask you about is funny picture of kids for people's birthdays. I don't know, and I have no context other than that.
Oh yeah. So many years ago, we were in Florida at Universal Studios, and my son was really happy to be in Harry Potter land, and he had a mug of butterbeer, but it just looks like this mug of beer, and he's doing a cheers to me. It's perfect for the show actually. But he's just kind of holding it up as a cheers, and he's got this fedora on and looking really like dapper, and it's just like just one of those feel good images, and I just put a happy birthday on it once to someone, and they were like, oh, I love that, and so then I just started sharing it with people for their birthdays, and then it became such a thing. Like anytime someone's birthday popped up, I would share it. They'd be like, "Oh, I was waiting for this." He was like, "I was like, my birthday's not complete till I see this picture." And then people started harassing me about, overusing it. Especially my kids were just like annoying. Dad, you're stupid. So I'm like, all right, I'll update it. So then I can't even remember how old he was, but I got him when I can't remember how old he was when we took that picture, but he was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 or something. But I got him to recently redo it for me at 14. And so that's the one I've been using now. So I was like, all right, I got like, 7 or 8 years of usage out of this one happy birthday. We're going to go with this new one for the next 7 or 8 years. But same style, just not in Harry Potter land, obviously. But yeah.
That's awesome. All right, I got to fire these next two out.
All right.
I've seen this sticker on Greg's laptop, so I know a little bit about it. It's 2 words: biscuit bitch.
No. The best breakfast you'll have in Seattle, hands down. Yeah.
Very nice.
It's seriously, like, if you go to Seattle and you don't go there, like, you're not even friends of Greg and I. Period.
I love it. And then these must be the same owner. The other one is Egg Slut.
Oh my gosh. I love that 2 of these 3 are food related because, that's like our life, right, Greg? But yeah, so in Vegas at I think it's the Cosmopolitan. It's been so long since I've even been traveling. I can't even remember things anymore, but I think it's inside the Cosmopolitan. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but anyway, this the best freaking breakfast sandwich you will ever have, and it's at Egg Slut. And like, yeah, it's funny. Egg Slut, biscuit bitch. Greg just finds me the best places to eat.
I love it.
Yeah,
and it's on brand for Greg that there's like swear words in the name of the company too, so that's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, Matt, congratulations on all your guys' success, and
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to seeing some of your beautiful slides at a conference sometime in 2021, maybe 2022. We'll see when all these vaccinations get out, but look forward to seeing you on the road. And other than that, I'm gonna sign off with a virtual cheers, and I'll see you guys next week on Suds and Search.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.